Hello, welcome to Fabulous Food. Today we're going to be making shortbread. So you need to find yourself a baking tray and line it with a piece of baking paper like that. And you also need to preheat your oven. So that's 160 degrees, or if you've got a fan oven, 140 degrees. So now we need to weigh out the ingredients. So put your bowl onto your scales, press 0, and then we need 100 grams of margarine, set the scales back to 0, and then weigh in 50 grams of caster sugar. And take the bowl off the scales, get your wooden spoon, and then we're going to cream these two ingredients together. So we're going to press the margarine against the side of the bowl with the sugar, and that will begin to incorporate the sugar into the margarine. And then we just keep going until both ingredients have been creamed together. So you'll need to stop and scrape the margarine from your spoon and then have another go. Now those look creamed together now. I'm going to set that aside and weigh out my flour. So bowl on the scales, set them to 0, and then I want 150 grams of plain flour. So 150 grams of plain flour. Bring our creamed margarine and sugar back. And the best thing to do is to add about half the flour to the bowl to start with and mix that in, and then add the other half of flour. It's much easier to incorporate it that way and it doesn't all fly out of the bowl. So around the side of the bowl, then press it against the bottom, and you should see it all begin to come together. So it doesn't need to be mixed completely. Clean the spoon off again. Add the other half of flour. Scrape all your mixture down into the bottom of the bowl and then keep mixing. So around the side of the bowl and across the bottom. You need to be patient and keep going. It's quite hard work, but eventually it will begin to look as if it's going to come together into a ball. And then you can put your hand in the bowl and bring it together, and the warmth of your hand will help the butter or the margarine to melt and just join together all the other ingredients. So I'm going to clean my spoon off again like that. I'm going to put one hand in the bowl and just gently squeeze the mixture together like that. You can see it's coming together. Use the ball that you've created just to wipe around the bowl. Get the rest of the ingredients. There, so I've got a nice clean bowl. Got a ball of shortbread. I'm just going to squeeze it together with my hand, so the warmth of my hands will help that come together. And at this stage, if you're at home and you've got plenty of time, you could use a rolling pin. So a little bit of flour on the surface, roll your shortbread out, and then you could use a cutter to create shortbread biscuits. When we're in school, we don't have the time to do that, and that's quite a difficult thing for you to do. So we would get the ball of shortbread like this. I'm just going to put a tiny little bit of flour on my surface so it doesn't stick. And then we would shape it into a log or a roll. So you can see I'm just gently rolling it out. Tap the ends in, because you don't want it to get too thin in the middle. So rolling it and then just tapping it back in. Until you get to that length. So that's probably about 20 centimetres. So I've got a sharp knife and I'm going to cut discs of shortbread now. So I'm going to cut it in half, and then I'm going to cut each half in half, and by doing this we'll get all the biscuits to be the same. And then each of these quarters now I'm going to cut into 3, so I end up with 12 biscuits. So now I've got my baking tray, I'm going to lift each shortbread round and put it onto the tray. Space them out a little bit because they will spread as they cook. So I've got them all on my tray, and I've noticed that this one is actually almost twice the width of this one. So I'm going to take that one off a minute. It was one of the end biscuits, and just cut it in half. And then put the halves back on the tray like that. And I'm going to put these in the oven for 12 to 15 minutes. So I've taken my biscuits out of the oven. They actually took 18 minutes, and I think that's because they're slightly thicker than we'd normally roll the dough in school. So you know that they're cooked when they begin to take on a golden colour, and they actually are now hard when I press the tops rather than soft. So the last thing to do is just to sprinkle a tiny bit of caster sugar onto each biscuit as it cools, and then that sugar will stick to the dough. If we do this in school, we get you to put your biscuits into your container before you do this. Otherwise, when you lift your biscuits up, all the sugar will fall off. So there we have it. Simple shortbread biscuits, but very, very delicious. So please send us some pictures on the Google Classroom so we can see how yours turned out. And I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.